I normally don't measure around the cushion to figure out. On average, 3 pieces of welting, 60 inches long each, is enough to go around one, like a seat cushion for a chair or a 3-cushion sofa. These are cut at 1.5 inches wide on about a 30-degree angle. It just needs to be on an angle so that it flexes around the corners and curves easy. The only time you don't cut it on an angle is if it's vinyl or if it's a stripe and you don't want this to look like a candy cane and you want the face, the welting, and the cushion top and bottom, this stripe to be all matching. So now I'm going to connect these together, make one long one. And if you look at this, you can see that these are cut on an angle here. So you want to make them face to face, and you should have a little ear over here, and on this side a little ear, and you're going to sew from here to here. Okay? And no, it's going to look funny because when this is laying flat, it doesn't look like it's going to be straight, but after you sew it together and open it up, it is straight. So we're going to take that, put it under there, go like that. And as you can see, that's straight. The reason this is on an angle is so that when you fold this over, this side of the seam and this side of the seam are not on top of each other. So it's not as bulky. You can see there, it's not going to be as bulky as if this was right on top of each other. So that's the reason why. And of course, you're going to open this up as you go along and put the filling in. So I'm going to connect all these together first. And I just lay them on my lap. I don't cut them ahead of time. I just stick them all together and then cut them at the end. And that's just a function of production. It saves you a little bit of thread, but it's not enough to break you. Something's wrong here. This is straight, this has got to be on an angle. I'm cutting that along the grain. That's how I know what angle I'm cutting at. Because the grain is actually straight. So now I'm going to clip these apart. And now I have one big long strip all sewed together. Alright, this is the filling we're going to use. There's lots of different kinds. The standard one is 5/32 thick, which is pretty much used for everything. This would not be used for slip covers. You need to use something called mop cord for slip covers because that's washable. This is not. And this would be used for everything else. Vinyl, a lot of guys like to use plastic, but always the same size. Some antique furniture you might find is smaller, but that you'd have to check the specs on when it was made. And so now you're going to put that inside. The foot has, alright, this is a double welting foot, and this has 2 little tunnels here. This one that's on the machine is a single wide and has 1 tunnel. And this cord is going to ride right in the tunnel. See my 1/2 inch mark here? As you can see, I got this fold right on the mark so that when I get done sewing it, from the sew line to the edge is a 1/2 inch because everything you cut was based on a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this would be your seam allowance, a 1/2 inch from here to here, which is what this line represents. That's a 1/2 inch away from the needle. Okay.
And the strips are how wide?
The strips are 1.5 inches wide. And that's if you're using this 5/32 filling. If you're using a different size cord, you have to adjust the width of the strip. so that you still get a 1/2 inch at the end once you sew it up. And these also come in different sizes. This is, I believe this is a 1/4 inch. It's either 3/16 or 1/4 inch.
So you can get that for a standard sewing machine as well?
Some machines, yeah, the better machines you can get them for.
I have one for mine.
Okay. So now I opened up the seam here. And just going to be careful when I go over that so I don't break the needle or anything. Alright, you see? Whoop. Whatever size stitch you're used to using is fine. You know, you don't want to use a little tiny stitch, because if you have to open this up, it's very hard to do if you got a real small stitch like a home machine. On a home machine, you want to use the biggest stitch it makes per inch. Okay, see how I have that opened up? And it's not necessary to iron it. I just flatten it out with my fingers, fold it in half. Now, if you're doing this with velvet, you got to make sure that they're all going in the same direction, because the velvet's going to shade and look like a different color. It'll be lighter and darker, so you got to make sure you have it always going in the same direction. And when I cut velvet out, I'll put a line on the inside all the way down one side, so I know one side has the line, one side doesn't have the line, so I know I'm connecting them all together in the correct direction.
Oh, so sorry.
Again, I'm opening that up, flattening out the seam. You can use one of those little sticks that they sell, but it's not necessary. Your finger will work just fine. Some people use the scissors. You want to make sure, you don't want to stretch this, because if you stretch it, it'll end up looking like a pigtail. It'll be all curly, so you don't want to stretch this. You do want to make sure that the cord is forced to the fold as best you can. Sometimes you can cant this over just a little over the line, which will help keep it tight. If you go this way too much, this won't sew tight. It won't sew tight to the cord. Now, I don't run this all the way out to the end, because if I have to add to this, I want to be able to handle this easily. So I just wait, and I also will cut this longer, so that if I do have to add to this, this seam and this seam are not in the same place. So it's just a little something that I like to do. And now I'm going to stop right